Lately, there's been a lot of news going on in the NBA so far, so much so that I've been doing double upload days each and every day, which, by the way, I'm enjoying the living hell out of. But I feel like these videos are necessary because I'm seeing so many wild and wacky rumors on the internet, and I know a lot of people are susceptible to believing these rumors. For example, a few days ago, we caught this rumor very quickly, and I'm going to leave a link to the rumor in the description down below if you guys want to watch it, but I caught a rumor that says that the Los Angeles Lakers were able to, or are going to, try to trade for Bradley Beal and Chris Paul. And I told you guys immediately, I feel like a lot of people just read the title and feel like I'm reporting this, but I told you guys immediately that Chris Paul trade is not realistic for the Los Angeles Lakers. They just cannot make the cap space work. Now, a Bradley Beal trade might be a different story, but then we reported yesterday that Bradley Beal committed to the team that he wants to play for the rest of his career. I'll leave a link to that video in the description down below as well. But through all the BS in the NBA so far, there are a few constants that I truly believe in, and we're going to get to some of those constants as well, and then go into a rumor that I actually could see happening. So before we get to the content, I just want to let you know we're giving away PlayStation 5s, man, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on this YouTube channel. This is our second PS5 that we're giving away on this YouTube channel. The first winner was Alicia Samia, and congrats to him. But all you have to do to enter on this channel is subscribe and turn on my notifications. You could be an old subscriber that has my notifications on, or a new one. You don't have to resubscribe or turn on my notification bell again. So long as you're subscribed and part of my Noti gang, you have been entered. And if you're a football fan, we're doing that on my microphone channel as well. If you could take a moment to leave a like, that'd be awesome as well. And also follow your boy on twitch.tv/FlightMike. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, the most realistic rumor that I'm hearing so far this offseason is the rumor that the New York Knicks are definitely going to take on a contract of an overbloated star NBA player. And that star player could be a player like Chris Paul, who has a bloated contract, whose contract is a little bit better than their alternative, which is Russell Westbrook. And honestly, I could see either of these scenarios happening. We made a video on the possibility of a Russell Westbrook trade yesterday, where I discussed whether the Houston Rockets would go for a Russell Westbrook for Julius Randle trade. Obviously, it's a little bit more complicated than that. The Knicks are going to have to give up way more than Julius Randle in order to make the salary cap work. But in both of these scenarios, I could see a logical road ahead for the New York Knicks. You see, with Russell Westbrook, all you would have to do is bring him in, surround him with a bunch of decent complementary players, make him look like his former 2017 MVP self, because he does the best when the entire offense flows through him, as opposed to having to play off of a star like he had to do in Houston. But their alternative would be to bring in Chris Paul. And I actually think bringing in Chris Paul could have a phenomenal effect on the rest of the New York Knicks, assuming that the New York Knicks don't kill his career like they've done with previous NBA Hall of Famers that decided to go to their roster. You know, like Amari Stoudemire and Carmelo Anthony and Tracy McGrady. I guess Amari Stoudemire wasn't really their fault and Tracy McGrady wasn't really their fault either, but you get what I'm saying. Now, the addition of Chris Paul would be very interesting because, one, the Knicks already said that they're interested in trading for Chris Paul. Two, they do have the capital to make it happen, and they do have the young assets that the OKC Thunder crave. For example, the Thunder really would covet a player like Dennis Smith Jr. or Kevin Knox. I don't think the Knicks would give up Mitchell Robinson for Chris Paul, but a player like Kevin Knox or Frank Ntilikina, who's been disappointing in New York, would definitely be a player that the Knicks would be willing to part with in order to secure a player like Chris Paul. And if you look at what Chris Paul's effect on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was when he was with the OKC Thunder, that makes a ton of sense as well for the New York Knicks. He could have a similar effect on Dennis Smith Jr. or any other young guard that is on the roster. Once again, assuming that the Knicks don't ruin Chris Paul's career. But What's even more fascinating is, I already made a video on this, but what's even more fascinating, and this is probably the newer piece of information we have, is the fact that if Chris Paul does join the New York Knicks, well, a New York Knicks legend might be joining him as well. You see, 10 years ago, when Carmelo Anthony was getting married to Lala Vasquez, Chris Paul stood at his wedding and gave a toast for his best friend and said that he hopes that Carmelo Anthony, Amari Stoudemire, and himself, Chris Paul, could form a big three in New York. And at the time, Chris Paul was supposed to hit the market in 2012. What ended up happening was he got traded to the Clippers, and eventually he got traded to the Rockets, and then he got traded to the Thunder, and now he's in the situation he is in now. But I think it's really interesting because things are about to come full circle for him, because according to this report from Mark Berman of the New York Post, Carmelo Anthony would be open to returning to New York if the team could get a deal for Chris Paul done. Here's what the report says. If point guard Chris Paul makes his way to the New York Knicks via a trade, sources have said Carmelo Anthony is likely to want to follow. Anthony and Paul are close friends who dreamed of playing together in the NBA and saw their alliance in Houston end prematurely. Both players were represented by Knicks president Leon Rose when he was basketball chief of CAA. The source said Rose is amenable to an Anthony return even without Chris Paul. If Julius Randle is part of a Chris Paul deal, the Knicks will need a starting small forward and power forward, and Carmelo Anthony plays either position. Now look, if this happened 8 years ago, then this would have been considered to be a great championship contender that could have revitalized the New York Knicks. However, that's not exactly what ended up happening, and now you're getting two Hall of Famers that are joining a team in their 30s to team up together. So what is the purpose of the Knicks doing this? Well, the Knicks are in a desperate need of a culture shift. That's why they hired Leon Rose. And Chris Paul was phenomenal this past season. He averaged 17.6 points, 6.2 assists, and 5 rebounds per game. Carmelo Anthony averaged 15 points and 6 rebounds per game this past season. So the only reason why the Knicks would do this is they have been in such horrible shape over the past 20 years that they literally need people to go in there, respected members of the NBA, to go in there and say, hey, listen, we're cleaning up the dumpster fire that is the Knicks organization. You guys could come through here. It is safe now. Bear in mind that a lot of people like Carmelo Anthony in the NBA. So many stars grew up watching Carmelo Anthony and Chris Paul, and they know that Chris Paul has this phenomenal feature about his game that can make them better if they join forces. Chris Paul's contract is also going to be an expiring contract after next season, assuming he opts out, which I highly doubt he does. But Carmelo Anthony probably wouldn't be demanding such a crazy salary either if he returned to the New York Knicks. So there is an opportunity for the Knicks to do something similar to what the Miami Heat did this past year and the Los Angeles Clippers did 2 years ago, in the sense that they could go in and say, hey, look, we have a bunch of good role players on this roster. We need a star to really put us over the hump and to make themselves known as an Eastern Conference destination for free agents. Well, it wouldn't be free agents this year, but I'm talking about the crazy free agent class for next year. So if you ask me, as far as all the rumors I've covered so far, whether it was the Bradley Beal rumor, the Chris Paul rumor, the Russell Westbrook to the Knicks rumor, this one has made the most sense so far. This one is the one that I think is most likely to happen, and I honestly think it comes down to it being an arms race between the Houston Rockets and the OKC Thunder. Who could offload their star prospect first? Could the OKC Thunder trade Chris Paul to the Knicks before the Houston Rockets attempt to trade Russell Westbrook to the Knicks? That's what I think it hinges upon. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. Aside from that, I'm your boy, TheFlightMike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.